Those who planned on killing an otherwise happy young boy, who would one day contribute greatly to mankind. What were they thinking? Those who insisted on making that kid's life miserable, where were they hiding? So, there are others who don't wish for the existence of time travelers, or the possibility of time travel. Who are these others anyway?
That's...
Asahina-san's cherry red lips slowly trembled. For a moment, it looked like she was about to say something, but she finally decided not to say anything.
I can't tell you about that yet.
And with that, she once again entered her sniveling state.
That's why I feel like I'm useless. It's the truth, I'm really useless. I can't do anything to help you. I can't even help you understand. I'm really worthless.
That's not true! Asahina-san, you're not useless at all. It's the restrictions on you that have made you unable to shine, and the one who's placing those restrictions on you is none other than your future self. But of course, I couldn't tell her that. That's what I promised Asahina-san big on the 7th of July. We even made a pinky promise.
Please, don't let her know about my existence.
As for how long I should keep this promise, I had no idea. And since I had no idea, I should probably stick to keeping it a secret from Asahina-san herself. Even I didn't know why I was being so stubborn, but I had a feeling that it would be better not to say anything for the time being. I wonder what she thinks of me for being so silent. Asahina-san continued in a depressed voice.
It's just like what happened before. You were the one who saved that kid, Kyoen-kun. We time travelers are prohibited from getting involved directly in any incidents concerning the past.
Is that so?
The only ones who can alter the past are the ones who are living in it. Anything other than that is strictly against the rules.
So that's why you needed my help.
It's what my superiors told me to do. All I did was follow instructions, even though I didn't know why I had to act that way. Thinking of this, I feel like an idiot.
You are no such thing.
I've always hoped that my superiors would tell me more. I've written them so many letters asking, but they always deny me. They must really feel I'm worthless. That's gotta be it, or they'd tell me, right?
I told you, that's not the case. I couldn't bear watching this as I finally opened my mouth and said, Asahina-san, you're definitely not useless. The truth is, you've done a lot. No matter whether it's for me, the SOS Brigade, or even the whole world. So don't cry. Asahina-san finally lifted her head to look at me, but then she quickly averted her tearful gaze to the floor.
The only thing I can do is dress up. It's the only thing I can do right.
She sounded so depressed.
And even during that time, I had no idea what my role was or what was going on.
This I could finally understand. On the 18th of December. That's not true! For someone like me, my attitude could be considered pretty serious right now. Apparently, Asahina-san had similar thoughts in mind, as if startled by my sudden shout. I swear, Asahina-san, you're more than just a tea-serving mascot. Images of Asahina-san Big surfaced in my mind. Snow White. It was all thanks to her hint that I was able to return from closed space. July 7th, 3 years ago, after going back in time with Asahina-san, I got a hint from Asahina-san Big as to what to do, before finally seeking Nagato's aid. And then, when reality was altered, she was the one who helped me restore it. That's right, I haven't told them in full detail about that incident yet. Maybe it's because it's too much for them to digest. I plan to wait for more time to pass before telling them. I only told them briefly that we were going to save the world. The three of us, Nagato, Asahina-san, and I, then went back to that time where I encountered a dying me on the ground, and Nagato's alternate form, before putting everything to an end. I believe that this event remains fresh in Asahina-san's memory. The only difference is that she, unlike me and Nagato, didn't notice the future version of herself. That's what Asahina-san Big was counting on. I dare say that both small and large versions of Asahina-san were the Asahina-san that I knew, and not the altered version of Asahina-san who didn't even recognize me. In Nagato's words, both from different times but of the same entity, or something like that. This Asahina-san was only following orders, but deep down, I knew that the one who was issuing those orders was none other than the elder version of Asahina-san herself. Asahina-san Big should know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. I mean, it's her own self we're talking about. If it was anything that Asahina-san Small should know, she would have told her in the first place. Seeing that Asahina-san hadn't revealed anything, I thought it would be best if I kept quiet. At least don't let her know who was there in the first place. That was what Asahina-san Big had asked of me. Of course, I could tell you that in the near future, you would become an even more beautiful woman than you are now. You'd even cross the boundaries of time and space in order to help me. It would be no difficult task for me. For example, during the second time I returned to July 7th 3 years ago, I could have easily awoken the me sleeping on the bench and spat out everything I knew. But of course, I didn't do that. Although no one told me I couldn't do that, it was specifically because no one told me I could do it that I didn't do it. Thinking back on it, I feel as if I made the right choice. One day, this little version of Asahina-san will go back to the future, before returning as the elder Asahina-san to once again help us. Although the current Asahina-san was an indispensable treasure to the SOS Brigade, as well as the clubroom's private maid, there would come a day when she would have to return anyway. Everything was tightly connected. Only with the present could there be a future. If the present mingled with all sorts of foreign matter, who knows what the future would turn out to be? I suddenly realized something. That's right. I wanted to open my mouth and spill everything out, but I knew I couldn't. My desire to do so conflicted with my better sense of judgment. I finally understood what it felt like. So that's how it feels. Thinking about what happened last summer, during the first citywide search for mysterious events, Asahina-san and I had walked side by side to the row of cherry blossom trees by the riverbank, where she revealed to me her true identity as a time traveler and tried to explain the concepts behind time travel. Of course, whether that counts as an explanation, I have no idea. All I know is it had something to do with time planes, cartoons, and drawings, while having nothing to do with water. At that time, no matter what I asked, her answer would always be classified information. What I'm going through now should be roughly what she went through then. That's right. Now wasn't the time to tell her anything, but... Asahina-san. I still wanted to console her. That's why I opened my mouth. It's like this. Actually, Asahina-san, well, how do you put this? You're definitely not just Haruhi's plaything. And, how did it go again? Something like, there's always something below the surface, or... Oh man. I gave up trying to remember that proverb halfway through my sentence. No matter what I said, it would be full of holes. How annoying. I had wanted to console her so she would stop feeling so down, but... Apparently, making up lines was not my specialty, hence the half-assed sentences you heard earlier. If it was Koizumi, he would surely come up with some beautiful-sounding nonsense which I would undoubtedly be annoyed at. However, a man should know his limits. I couldn't always run to Nagato or Koizumi for help. After all, this was my problem. I should solve it by myself. Even so, this was like giving a baboon the latest high-end computer, but not telling him how to use it. Although I wanted to help Asahina-san, my mind was totally void of useful vocabulary. Maybe some physical stimulant would help. Perhaps it would speed up the flow of impulse. With that in mind, I knocked my skull with my fists. Nothing happened. My mind was still as blank as before. In the end, all I did was and as if waiting for the sun to set. That was until Asahina-san said,
Hyun-kun, you don't have to say anymore.
I immediately lifted my head and found myself staring into Asahina-san's confused eyes. Her mouth, however, was curled into a smile.
Whatever you're trying to say, I understand.
Asahina-san widened her smile as she gently nodded. Huh? You understand? Just what do you understand? I haven't said anything.
You really don't have to say anymore. This is enough.
Asahina-san's previously tightly closed lips parted open as she looked at me with warm eyes. There was a faint but detectable trace of understanding in those eyes. I suddenly realized something. Realized what, you say? Do you still need to ask? What I realized was Asahina-san had finally understood. She may have pieced together from my stuttering speech patterns the true message I was trying to convey, even though I never told her out loud. But why didn't I? There are only a few explanations to this question. Just as I was about to open my mouth to speak, Asahina-san gently raised her left hand and placed her warm index finger on my freezing cold lips. That was my cue to stop. There wasn't any reason to keep going. My thoughts had already reached Asahina-san. The both of us remained silent.
Yeah.
Asahina-san slowly lifted her index finger and placed it on her own lips. That sent a wave of ripples through my heart. That's right. That was all I could say. Silence is golden, speech is silver. Wasn't that the case? There wasn't any pitcher in this world who needed to tell the catcher what his next pitch was going to be like. There are highly convenient ways of communication in this world, such as signals or body language. Simple matters don't need to be expressed in words. Why is that so? Well, it's because even without saying it aloud, the both of us had already understood what was in each other's hearts. Since communication was possible even without the medium of speech, why bother? There was no need for vocabulary, no need for long-winded speeches, and it certainly conserved energy. The only response I could make was to smile. That was enough. Anything that couldn't be conveyed via speech would just have to be conveyed through the heart. The following Monday after school, everyone gathered in the clubroom as always, trying the newly bought tea. After everyone had finished, the SOS Brigade commander said,
Seikyon.
Unlike me, Haruhi had no sense of gratitude. She downed that entire cup of burning 70°C tea in less than 2 seconds. After all that trouble that Asahina-san and I went through, couldn't you at least taste the damn tea? What? I replied as I secretly snuck a side glance at the smiling Asahina-san.
Oh, would you like some more?
Asahina-san picked up the kettle, preparing to pour some tea into Haruhi's empty cup. Haruhi suddenly leaned forward and placed her chin in her hands, before uttering out some strange lines.
I happen to have a weird habit of talking to myself.
Is that so? That was new. After knowing you for almost an entire year, this is the first time I've heard of such a habit.
Even if there were others beside me, I would still carry on.
I think you should get a mental checkup.
So I'm gonna start talking to myself again. If by chance you hear any of it, please bear with me.
What are you trying to say? Before I could say that, Haruhi suddenly raised her voice and said,
You know, there's a really smart, honest kid living near my house. He wears glasses that make him look like a professor, and he looks really smart in them. His name is...
Haruhi mentioned a name that I was certain I heard recently. My back suddenly started to sweat, but that wasn't because of the heat. Asahina-san froze on the spot.
Sometimes I go over there and I help him out with his homework, which is why I was at his house yesterday. And that's when he said to me, the bunny girl's together with a guy.
Haruhi let out a spine-chilling smile.
When we filmed that movie back in the fall, he just happened to be nearby. He had a really deep impression of Mikuru-chan in the bunny suit. Since we were on the same topic anyway, I asked him what the guy looked like. This is what he drew.
Haruhi took out a piece of paper that was clearly torn from an exercise book. There was a rough sketch of a highly familiar face on it. How come it seems like the one I would usually see every morning while looking in a mirror? Wait, that should be me. No matter how you look at it, it was a portrait of me drawn on that paper. Haruhi suddenly let out a deep laugh. That kid turned out to be a big-mouthed but talented artist. Isn't he supposed to become a scholar someday? Don't tell me he aspires to become an artist in the future. If I had known that, I would have bribed him so that he would become temporarily mute and disabled. My vision blurred for about 3 seconds, as I waited to see if a saint would suddenly descend to save the world. Asahina-san was trembling all over, and her voice seems to have lost its function. In a situation like this, chances that a new character would burst in were too slim, so I desperately swept my eyes around the clubroom. After looking into Nagato's -4°C eyes, for some reason I felt sick to my stomach. On the other hand, Koizumi did nothing but smile, as if thoroughly enjoying the entire situation. Wait a minute, did these guys know everything from the start? Haruhi's expression resembled one who had eaten an onigiri covered with blended chili paste and crushed psychedelic mushrooms. That is to say, one who wanted to laugh but was trying to restrain herself.
Spit it out. Where did you and Mikuru-chan go yesterday and what did you do? Don't worry, I promise I won't get mad.
I shot a sideways glance at Asahina-san, who resembled a frog drenched in green paint, her face green all over. I shouldn't be talking though, as a cold sweat trickled endlessly down my face, like a toad being surrounded by 3 dozen serpents. It must have been my imagination, but for a moment I thought I saw Haruhi's aura rise up behind her before turning into a violent display of fireworks, which proceeded to smash the glass window behind Nagato. Or something like that.
I'm sorry.
Koizumi stood up straight, as if wanting to avoid the invisible fireworks, before picking up his chair and moving away from the window pane. Then, he made a gesture with both hands and continued to smile like he used to. The only thing he left out were the words, "Please carry on." Damn you, Koizumi. I'll deal with you afterward by murdering you with big bets and poker. I'll remember this. About that. The task at hand was to create a lie that would convince Haruhi. But right now, I really don't have time to think of one. So could anyone out there please help me? If possible, please text me, because even a courier service wouldn't be able to make it in time. Faced with my stuttering self, Haruhi decided to repeat her question.
Well, spit it out, and I want it to be so long and precise that even Koizumi-kun, Yuki, and I can understand, or else.
Haruhi took a deep breath and revealed a bright smile before saying,
The both of you will be punished severely. That's right, how's this seem?
Haruhi announced a punishment so inhumane that even the blood-stained gates of hell would tremble after hearing it. I looked at Asahina-san and found that she was shaking. So was I. I don't think I need to explain what happened in the clubroom afterwards. Faced with Haruhi's sadistic smile, Nagato's even colder than usual expression, and Koizumi's annoying smirk that seemed to suggest that he was mildly enjoying this, I desperately racked my brain for some sort of explanation, like a lost soul furiously trying to squeeze out some water from a dry sponge in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Beside me, Asahina-san was thrown into a state of total panic. I really don't think I need to explain any further. You guys can probably guess the rest.